Mary Catherine, you are the target demo in this election. You are a young mother of four children. You are married. You're a suburbanite. You probably have two cars and you go out to eat once in a while. And so you are it. You're the target demo. What do you think of the Stormy Daniels testimony yesterday?
I think that I'm mad at this trial for making me watch a stupid trial in real time because I generally don't like to do that. I like to do it as all suburban moms do on Netflix several years later
Ha!
after the thing has happened. Um, so,
You're
so there's that. Uh, Two, I think, look, this comes to the baked in question, right? About Trump. If you're talking about swingy suburban mom voters, uh, do they doubt that he had like bad behavior and treated his wife badly and met up with Stormy Daniels and had this encounter? I don't think any of them doubt that. I don't think they have since the beginning. So the question is whether it matters to them in this moment. By the way, the court illustrator really did her dirty on the stand.
Yeah, they
Not a
did.
flattering
Ooh, ooh.
of Stormy Daniels. But so I think that's sort of baked in. And then you get to the part where, like, do they care about the details of this trial? Maybe because it's slightly salacious, I guess. But I'm not sure it's changing voting patterns. And for myself, like, because I actually am following it, the nonsense of these charges. I mean, look, I concede that the behavior is salacious, but when the you talk about the amount of money in the offense, it's a, if anything, a small FEC violation, which the FEC itself didn't go after. And then the Southern District of New York didn't go after as a criminal matter. This has been really exaggerated, dare I say, trumped up to a ridiculous degree. And I just don't see it being credible.
I'm going to play you a couple of clips. It's a 2006 encounter. That's during the Iraq surge, right? That actually it's
Right.
before the surge, before the election, and then so it's 15 years before Abbygate, and it's almost 20 years from today. And they're talking about a business records change 10 years
Yeah.
after that in 2016, and it didn't. No payment occurred until 2017. Andy McCarthy will be along. I just want to know if you were paying attention to it. Let me play for you cut number 24. Frank Luntz, cut number 24. Harley talking
I
yesterday
think
with
that they're
Jake
frustrated.
Tapper.
These are people who look at the economy. They prioritize inflation, immigration, and abortion more than anything else. And the trial to them is kind of a distraction. But in the end, what happens in April is not going to, or May, is not going to determine what happens in October and, more importantly, in November.
Second cut from CNN. Casey Hunt, Jake Tapper, and a third legal analyst. I think it's Josh Barr. I'm not sure. Cut number 26.
Jurors, Casey?
Just one thing that I've been sort of noticing as this has gone on is that there have been a couple times where she seems to be cracking a joke, trying to get a reaction from the jury, and our reporters in the room have noted that the jury hasn't seemed to respond
No, they're
to
taking
that.
their job seriously.
I mean, what do you make of that?
Humor is risky in the courtroom, especially if you go in with lines, like it looks like Stormy. If something happens spontaneously, if an easel falls over.
All right, stop right there. Mary Catherine, have you ever been on a jury?
I have not been on a jury. They've never even asked me. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, don't ever say that on the air. There's a clerk somewhere where you live who's putting you on a list right now. Has husband Steve ever been on a jury? They wouldn't let him near a jury, would they?
No, but he's like been in, we've both been in courtrooms.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing that Casey Hunt is relaying. Nobody's laughing at her jokes. Jake explained, but the jury's doing their best to maintain. I got to tell you, I've been on a jury. People fall asleep. People laugh when it's funny. People get mad. People sneeze. It's a stupid, stupid comment to say they're doing their jobs. But I think humor is tough. You were talking this week about doing a speaking gig in front of the American Beverage Association. Do you use humor in the morning?
Yes, but it is tough. It's like being funny is not easy. And particularly if you have a crowd that may have gone out the night before and then you have a morning gathering and you're like, hi, you're here to listen to me. You do have to try to make it fun for them. And they were a very sweet crowd and kind to me. But you may have noticed actually this week that Ben Collins, formerly the misinformation reporter, is doing a great job of illustrating with The Onion how hard it is to be funny. Have you
Mary
seen
Kath,
the product that he's putting out?
I haven't, but I did see your dramatic reading in the airport of The Onion. God save the Onion. It's dead, isn't it? The Babylon Bee is alive. The Onion is dead.
That seems to be the case. I mean, it's painful. It's so painful that it almost comes back around to funny because it's like performance art. How unfunny it is. So yeah, it's
if
risky.
people follow you on X, they can scroll down. That was a few days ago when you did the dramatic reading or the hushed reading of that. All right, now I got a few podcast-specific questions. The podcasting question is getting hammered. First of all, what are milkshake ducks?
Oh, milkshake duck is a term for when the wider sort of culture and internet specifically finds a character that it likes and seems wholesome and kind, and then someone goes and unearths tweets or tries to tear down that person. And sometimes you find out that person really does have bad behavior in the past, but it's like, can we just leave it alone? So for instance, if there was like a person who did a good deed and then someone dug up old YouTubes of them saying nasty things about women, that would be a milkshake duck experience.
When did that term develop? How did I miss that?
At some point, I knew where the origin, what the origin of milkshake duck was, but that is what the term means. I will have to do more research on this for you, Hugh, and get back to you about it.
I've got a second boomerism for you. By the way, you took a sidelong elbow at boomers when you suggested that naps were limited to boomers. In fact, I've been napping since I was 18. So I don't think it's a fair boomer reference. By the way, boomers is too big of a term because there are old boomers and there are young boomers. And your dad and I are middle-aged boomers. That's what I like to think. Or maybe young, old boomers. But you millennials divide into old millennials and young millennials. Why can't boomers get the young and the old treatment?
You know, I think they should. I'm the oldest millennial, by the way, maybe possibly Gen X, depending on who you ask. But I also think that boomers should be split up into like there are jerk boomers and there are nice boomers. My parents are the most lovely boomers there are. I mean, they're fantastic. Hugh, lovely, right? But then you got the professors on the campuses with their tenure out creating circles around the Hamas protests. So like those guys are not on my list.
Professor boomers are different. And did you have any good professors at the University of Georgia whose names instantly spring to mind as being great lecturers?
I had Conrad Fink, who was who had these insane mad professor eyebrows, and he was a former Marine, and he ran UPI at one point. So he was like a real like crotchety old wire guy. He was fantastic.
A wire guy. So front page comes to mind. So not all professors are terrible drum circle beating hippies who have nowhere to go but campus. All right, back to the specifics. I'm going to ask you what I asked Vic. Why are there no ads on Getting Hammered? You must get tens of thousands of downloads every single episode, if not hundreds of thousands of downloads. It's the funniest morning show that's not in the morning and should be added, not competing with UQ listeners. Why no ads?
Well, one, I could just say, like, because we're here for the audience, man. Like, we don't want to interrupt your listening. But it's actually just not my gig. So I'll have to hand that off to someone else. Because with all this very risky attempt at being funny, like, I can't add ads to my plate. But you're right. We do have a nice audience. And we have a non-offensive, funny political program that does parenting and sports and sort of tries to mix it up a bit. And it would be a fun place.
I'm going to have Harley talk to you when we're done, because Harley will tell you how to get the ad stream to be automated so that Dwayne and John Campbell just started Look Through Chaos, and they've already got 15,000 downloads. They'll get ads pretty quickly. Let me ask you now about being tent challenged, because I've never been in a tent, because I won't go into a tent. I am anti-tent. And whenever one of the grandkids want to do tents, they're going to have to find a different grandparent or a parent or an uncle, because I don't do tents. I don't sleep outside. Why? When did you discover you were tent challenged? Were you a Girl Scout?
So putting up a tent is always difficult because you got, each time you go camping, you probably don't go camping super often. So you're like trying to figure out a new plan. But I have my third child is only 2.5, but I believe that she could put up a tent. She's very, like, she has like an engineering mind. I think I would put her on that. And I'm not afraid to sleep outside. So if the tent fails, I will be under the stars and we'll call it, we'll make the best of it. But I actually like camping. And I have in my past, as a crazy single mom, taken two like under 4 kids to camp just by myself. So.
Oh my goodness. You know, we were talking about this last night. The Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I went and saw Fall Guy yesterday on the recommendation of Sonny Bunch. And during it, I leaned over and said, "Do you think our 9-year-old grandson could see this?" And she said, "No, absolutely not. He'd be scared." And I said, "Well, Kate could see it." And she said, "Oh, yes, Kate." So that's our new joke. Kate could see it because she's Genghis Kate and she's 4 years old. I don't know if you have one of those spicy children. Bethany does. Do you have a spicy child?
I would say that the toddler is on her way to being spicy. The baby's very sweet. The baby boy is like sweet natured. She's gonna be a lot. She's aggressive. She's very intelligent. She's a woman of few words. She just said "I love you" for the first time the other day. You know who she said it to, Hugh?
The
Was
dog?
it her mom or dad or grandparent?
No.
No, we went to a friend's house who has 2 cats, and she was super into the cats, and the cats were not into her. And I heard from across the room from the child who never talks, "Meow." She calls cats meow. "Meow, I ya you." 3 times.
You know, if they're going to be their own little person, they're going to be independent. But spicy children, our booking producer, Danielle, my daughter, you, Bethany, you all have one. And they can all go to the PG-13 movies and revel in them, but not certain 9-year-olds. I hate public discussions of intimate details involving celebrities. I think it's salacious. I think it's detrimental to the public at large. And I think this judge is a madman, out of control. I'll talk to Andy McCarthy about it. They should never have let a porn star on the stand. What do you think?
Look, it's gross. I'm not interested. I kind of have to pay attention, but I'm not enjoying it. And I think even the judge at one point was like, "Hey, all these details seem unnecessary for an FEC violation," which is actually like sort of on the order of the crime that we're talking about, because there was no crime in the actual initial behavior or really even in the paying off. This is like an accounting mistake. But I think there's a lot of desire from the judge, from the media, to be in this courtroom together and make a giant show. And I'm not sure it's going to have the impact they think it will. I think people are not into this.
I think they hate it, actually, because it's 2006. I don't think I think there might be a hung jury, but the jury's never going to acquit Trump because there are going to be at least a couple of Trump haters in there. But they might get a hung jury out of this at best. I'm assuming a conviction. Now, I want to switch over to every other salacious case. I think the OJ was a false positive for a lot of reasons in terms of audience. Generally speaking, I don't think audiences like trial details. Do you?
I feel like I'm the outlier in that I don't love trials, but it felt like they got, so I came of age in the era of OJ, right? So that was after that point, every network was like, we got to do trials, right? So I think I got more of that than maybe other generations did. It doesn't interest me, but I will say that it does seem to interest a lot of my demo. And perhaps that's all because we came up during OJ. But like I said, a lot of them put off, like we don't do trials in real time because we're moms. We got stuff to do. I can't be watching Stormy Daniels on the stand. When you package it in a Netflix documentary 6 years from now, I will watch that. By the way, that will then be 25 years from the actual encounter we're talking about.
Oh, speaking of Netflix, last night the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I indulged in a commentary recommends and watched Sugar with Colin Farrell. Have you and Steve watched Sugar?
No, I have watched 2 episodes when I was on a trip to give a speech, and I very much enjoyed it. And that commentary episode reminded me that I need to get back to it because I love Colin Farrell and I like the look of that series. It's fun.
It is so fabulously, John. And by the way, I'm going to repeat John's warning: don't Google it. Don't Google it. You'll find out stuff. It's got Colin Farrell. It's got Farmer Hoggett, the communist Jim, whatever his name is, James, and it's fabulously shot. Biggest story of the morning. U.S. confirms holding up sale of precision bombs it feared Israel would use in Rafah. and in the New York Times, a helpful explainer, what to know about the gaps between Israel and Hamas on the ceasefire proposal. On the latter, Hamas won't do anything. And on the former, what are they thinking? You don't ever talk about the war, or at least only glancingly. What do you think about Team Biden and its incoherent policy on Israel?
Yeah, I'm honestly confused by what the heck these people are doing. Look, I think that if Biden were actually in charge, which is like I don't think so. His gut is sort of pro-Israel, right? Like what his first reaction was, I think, what he believes, because he is a little bit more of an old school Democrat in this way. I think the administration is staffed almost entirely by people whose lives have been given over to this protest culture and this idea that as long as you can say you are the oppressed, you're in the right, and basically nothing matters after that. And so there's this tug of war to some extent because they know that politically the nation is still with Israel to the same degree, if not more than it was post October 7th. These protests have not made a difference in public opinion, except for the worse. I think I've seen some tweeting from lefty activists lately who are like, "Oh, let's maybe not talk about these college protests so much. Why are we concentrating on them so much?" Which says to me that this is going badly for them. But this is an ally in the Middle East, a place with liberal values, a place that allows people of all stripes and all religions and all sexualities to live free in this like prosperous place. And it is our job to stand with them against barbarism, which is what October 7th was. And it doesn't seem like a lot to ask that we could be consistent about that and not take, for instance, terrorists at their word about an insane ceasefire deal that never really existed and can't really exist because, frankly, these monsters have probably killed too many hostages to make a deal. Which would have been a bad
I want to
deal
put this
anyway.
in terms that are very local for Mary Catherine and I. We live not far from each other. Let's assume there are 10 to 20,000 heavily armed people, say, in Ballston. We've got friends in Ballston.
Right.
They're far away from where we live. Maybe we wouldn't want to walk there, but you could on a long day. You could get there. It's about 10 miles, maybe 5 miles, like that. I would want anyone trying to get the 10 to 20,000 terrorists in Ballston hit with precision munitions so they did not blow up people who were not terrorists. Why are we suspending precision munitions?
It's crazy. It's actually crazy. It's hard to decipher. I don't know why these people are out of their minds because this is important. And it is a matter of civilization, as I said, versus barbarism. And the idea that they're so morally blinkered that they can't see that is scary to me. This is one of the easiest moral calls that I've seen in my lifetime. And they seem to continue to end up on the wrong side of it. And I think part of that is that liberals, and I see this in DC all the time because it's sort of the conventional wisdom, liberals almost believe that the negotiations themselves or the peace process is the entity worth preserving more than actual Israel, which is an actual country and an actual ally. To them, the talking is the good versus the actual nation state. And that's a problem because I think they talk themselves into things that don't exist, like the fact that Hamas is a negotiating partner, because they can't believe anything else. And that's a dangerous thing to believe because, as we saw, Hamas cannot be trusted on any point.
So this brings me to my last subject, the last I. My anagram for, I think it's an anagram for the campaign, is ABC, DEI, III. A is for Afghanistan and appeasement, B for the border, C is for crime, DEI is DEI. The first I is inflation, the second is Israel, and the last one is infirmity. I think the president is infirm. Now, you saw that walk where he stopped and sort of squatted and Joe Biden just walked on, and you said, what's going on here? What do you think? Yeah. Do you think the president can actually run for president? Do you think he's going to be their nominee?
I think he's going to be their nominee, and also he cannot actually run for president. I think they're going to try Basement Joe again, but he's not well. He's not well. I didn't want to be rude about that incident, but I just posted a picture of my face going like, because every mom knows what that is.
Every mom knows what that is, and everyone who's had parents pass away, and I'm old enough too, and you haven't, knows what decline is. You go from infirmity to incoherence to incapacity. it's an inevitable slope, and it seems to me he's gathering speed. Do you think
Yes.
he's going to be the nominee, though?
I think he will be. I think they're sort of stuck at this point. But I will say he looked worse than usual even in that clip. But again, the next step is Kamala, I guess. And wow, that's
Remember the Hewitt option. The Hewitt option is he gets to Chicago on the eve of the convention. He announces, I can't do this, and he throws it open to the delegates because they can't really go with Kamala. Mary Katherine Ham, thank you for 3 segments today. The website, the podcast is Getting Hammered. It really is your morning show for any time of the day with Vic Mattis, available with podcasts everywhere. And you've got to monetize it, Mary Katherine. Harley will tell you how. Stay tuned.